special meeting of the Field School, our joint meeting with Field and Waterloo to order at 7:05. Everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join us in a moment of silent meditation, please. As soon as Sal gets back, I don't know which I'm connected to. Roll call, please.
Board Member Donna Card.
Present.
Board Member Laura May.
Here.
Board Member Larry Stewart.
Here.
Board Member Allison Westover.
Here.
Board Member Terry Kettering.
Here. It is recommended the Field Board of Education adopt the following agenda for the April 4th, 2013 special meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Allison Westover moves. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Larry Stewart seconds. Any discussion? Roll call.
Board Member Card.
Yes.
Board Member May.
Yes.
Board Member Stewart. Yes. Board Member Westover.
Yes.
Board Member Kettering.
Yes.
Okay, at this time we'll call to order the special meeting of the Waterloo Board of Education. Roll call, please, Tom.
Here. Jones.
Here.
Whittlesey.
Here.
Fletcher. Here. Jones. Here.
Before I turn it back over to Terry and Maria, I just wanted to mention that, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to talk about shared services. And Maria's going to talk a little bit more about exactly what that entails. But over the last 2 years especially, Waterloo has looked at ways to save money so that we can put it back into the classroom, get more people working with more students. And one of those ways that we think that we can do that possibly is with shared services. We've looked at 2 or 3 other opportunities in the last 2 years, neither of which have worked out. And so when this opportunity presented itself to us, we thought it's necessary, and through due diligence and the oath of our community and our students and everybody within the Waterloo district to look into it, investigate it. And as part of that investigation is the meeting we had Monday and then the meeting here this evening. And we are just at the beginning edges of this. So I appreciate everybody coming and appreciate your input.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Maria Markakis, and I'm the attorney for actually both school districts, Waterloo and Field. The firm I work for is Dave Ketter, and as I said, we represent both school districts. So if the districts choose to pursue a shared superintendent agreement, Dave Ketter will assist with memorializing an agreement, but won't be involved in negotiating the terms. That would be a conflict for us. So, and then also, if the districts become adverse to one another, then both districts would need to retain other counsel. So my purpose today is just to help facilitate a discussion of the shared services arrangement. I've prepared 6 topics to discuss tonight, but before I get into those topics, I'd like to give everyone a brief overview of what shared services means. Last summer, I believe in June, Governor Kasich issued a report entitled Beyond Boundaries. It's a shared services action plan for schools and local governments, and it can be found at beyondboundaries.ohio.gov. The report contains information from shared services surveys that were completed, as well as recommendations for improving government cost savings. The impetus of the report was that service expectations continue to grow while growing much faster than our economy. and the need to identify these efficiencies has become an urgent need in the state of Ohio. So the report provides a definition of what shared services is and defines shared services as follows: a collaborative strategy that is fundamentally about optimizing staff, equipment, and facilities and other corporate or public resources across jurisdictions to improve operational efficiencies and related outcomes. I know it's a long definition, but I think that it's the best definition I could find of shared services. And then on a final note, I just want to mention that the plan was submitted to Governor Kasich by Richard Ross and Timothy Keene. And Richard Ross is the newly appointed superintendent of public instruction, which means head superintendent of the state of Ohio. He's the head of the Department of Education. So the fact that he did all of the research and issued this report, if you open up the report on the second page, there's a foreword from him, means that he truly believes in this, especially amongst school districts in the state of Ohio. So I'm going to start with my first topic, which is the role of the superintendent. And so the first thing I'd like to discuss is what is the impact of that role on other administrators at those districts. So I'm going to start with the field board and get your ideas of what you think that looks like, and then I'll turn it over to the Waterloo board. The role of a shared superintendent and the impact on the roles of other administrators at both districts, because sharing a superintendent means that he won't be in one district or the other all the time. So how would that impact other administrators in both schools, starting with field? What do you think, and how do you see that playing out? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, like was discussed a little bit on Monday, we have a little bit of a concern since neither of the districts have a superintendent as to, how are we going to work this if this is an option we decide to go with. Having a superintendent who's in the district part-time because they're in the other district, and how's that work on all our other administrators? I know we have more administrators who want us than I think Waterloo does. So it might be less of a concern as far as field is concerned. That's just my thought on it. Anybody else have anything? I did speak with Mr. Coleman, who is the board member for local. And I also talked with both superintendent secretaries for Burn and Walnut. They share superintendent. They expressed their thoughts as, first of all, we have a leg up, say, because you, Mr. Hill or Dr. Hill is already acquainted with your school district. Sometimes the superintendent actually comes in and is, new to both districts. So that may be helpful as far as if we do this, the transition in the field. He may have to spend a little bit of time in the field, but hopefully he has programs in place at your district so that will enable him to get things going on here. We also said that, as Allison said, you need to have go-to someone, if by chance Dr. Hill is not in the building, who would be the next in command, and you have to designate that. And then from there on, they said, filtering down who's, he's in charge of these two and these two in charge of, so forth. That makes it much smoother. Also, their main concern was that their districts are 45 minutes apart. And, they asked, how far away we are, and they said, well, actually, we're joining districts, so it's only about 15 minutes. But that was probably the most concerning fact for them, was that even if they got a hold of their superintendent, that it would be 45 minutes from wherever he was, in what building in that district to the other district. So we've got that there too. And
here again, I think that's one of the, probably the main concern would probably be making sure that we have someone that is in charge, I feel, when he's not there.
What is the water of the board? What are your thoughts on the topic?
Well, we have an existing chain of command, if you will, and Mr. Hill's out of, Dr. Hill's out of the building currently on meetings at the county level or the state level or whatever. We have procedures in place for the emergencies that come up, and that would be the similar type of situation. But the day-to-day things, he can still be doing pretty much the majority of the work that he does now. He would be doing a lot of it, the reporting and things like that he has to do through that aren't focused on the students and getting out within the staff. That stuff would be done in evenings, weekends, after school hours and those kinds of things. But, we have two principals in our building. We don't have a curriculum director. We don't have full-time EMIS people. We're pretty light at we're pretty light at a lot of levels, especially the administrative level. And they wouldn't be able to pick up much of his daily duties. Anybody else have anything to add?
No, I think, and if we could do it, I think Dr. Hill would be, we can't, where he's at, the Waterloo is here, he's gonna be doing work for both districts. We can't worry about where he's at, as far as, him doing the work. And there's an emergency, him being close, he can get here or back over there in 20 minutes. Maybe, and I'm sure we have that procedure. I think Mr. Harris, if Mrs. Coleman's not here, Mr. Harris, we still have that procedure.
I guess I have concern on where he is and where he is doing the work, because if he's here, he's working on field taxpayer dollars, and he can't sit at Waterloo and do field work over there. I mean, I wouldn't, how can you justify sitting in one building and doing work for another district in the building? Because you're based on how you're paying them and what percentage of services are provided in each district. So, where we talk about working on weekends and doing all that stuff, that's great, but that's I have concerns about what we're out there.
Dr. Hill, do you have any response to some of the concerns within the school?
I would say that my thoughts on this as I think about the arrangement, and I think these are board decisions, but I would think that it would be a 50-50 split. And I would think that there would be, as well as there could, a schedule that's set up weekly, so that each board knows, as others in each district, which days they're going to be there, recognizing that, as with anything, life, especially being involved in education, things fluctuate, things change. And so if we had something that changed, once that was done, adjusting to make sure that we're doing our best, I'm doing my best to keep that 50-50 split. And I think it's important to have a presence in both districts. I would have never envisioned myself sitting in one and doing all the work for the other at that location. I think presence is important.
Any other comments?
I think that if you don't work for a school district, I think the dynamic of it is a little bit of a mystery. If you have a manager, you have someone that, or let's say you have a president of a company, they're not always in the building, but they're always on top of what's going on. So I think that if you have a good superintendent who knows how to manage the people that are under him, I think that that day-to-day thing is not, you won't find it as important. But and I really think that Dr. Hill will make sure he is here 50% of the time. But I think that if it sort of compares like that if you're a good superintendent and you have good people under you, then you really don't have as much a concern about being there day to day. Principals are there
to be able to be at every school-sponsored event for both districts. So how do the boards see that playing out? I'll start with field.
I would, and, I mean, 50/50, the same way, I mean, and that's gonna have, be worked out, but I don't see a problem with 50/50. And if something's both on the same night, then we're gonna have to decide which one to go to.
Well, and I think being present at the academic events, take more precedence over sporting events. We have to make sure our graduations aren't on the same day, and National Honor Society inductions. It's great to see a superintendent show up at a sporting event. However, in all my years of growing up here at Field, I don't ever remember our superintendents being visible at sporting events. So I think to me, that's less of a priority than being at the academic events.
One of the things that's been really nice with Dr. Hill is that he has been at so many events. I mean, he's at almost every home football game, he's at a lot of the basketball games, he's obviously at all the academic events that go on during the course of the day. And he brings his wife and his kids in that, so, I mean, it's really a nice thing to see. It's really a nice thing to see him there with his young kids and his wife, and they're kind of becoming part of the community and that. And I think that he would continue, he might not be as visible at those extra events at Waterloo as he is, but he still would be there quite a bit, as well as going to the field events. And some nice things about our location, if we have home football games, we're both at home on a football game, we're 10 minutes apart. He could be at one for part of the game and and the other one for part of the game. Basketball, the same thing, girls basketball. I mean, or he could just alternate. I mean, there's a lot of variables there that he could do, and that's one of those things that I think that you have to trust that he's going to be able to, and I have all the confidence in the world that he would be able to pick the events and get to them as needed, and be out there within the community, meeting the community members, and that is all part of the extra part of being a superintendent. So you know the community members, the students know you, and all that kind of stuff. So.
Any other comments from either board on the extracurricular or on the role of the shared superintendent in general?
Waterloo plays field football game, we cheer for.
Yeah,
Haven't played.
We don't play you guys.
yeah.
Used to be fairly crowded.
I would just say that, for those of you that don't know, whenever Dr. Hill came to our district, the first thing he did was he went to, it's kind of a joke because he went to Red Hats, but he also went to the Lions Club, the trustees meetings. He met with all the employees. He met with every organization there was to get to know them. And I think that right out of the blocks was one good thing, because then he knew where he needed to be and what was important and what events were the most important to the school and to the community. And I think you'll find he'll do the same thing here.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is the evaluation of a shared superintendent.
Should we open this up to the public too?
Yeah, do you want to open to the public after each?
Well, instead of waiting to give them all we can say on this, if we have to come back to this one, we can just come back to this topic.
Absolutely. Are there any questions out in the audience regarding the role of the shared superintendent? Or any comments or concerns?
I attended a meeting on Monday.
Certainly here.
I attended a meeting on Monday out of Waterloo. I'd like to thank you guys again for letting me come out and speak. I also want to thank you for coming here today. One of the things we talked about Monday, very recently, heard a couple times today, was that the assumption is that the resource will be split 50-50 because of your needs, because of fields, proximity, but you also spoke about the funding in terms of how it's going to be paid. That was pretty obvious it was going to be based on the student enrollment. Bigger school was going to pay the larger bill. So I just wanted to hear your comments on how you think those two things measure out when you compare, one district pays 65%, for 50% resource?
Yeah, that's actually one of my topics, so we can go right into that, just about basic contractual considerations. And one of the items under there is how would that look financially? So I'm going to start with Field. You can give your opinion, and then we'll turn it over to Waterloo.
Well, then, I think we still have to negotiate or even talk about that, but if it was, I mean, if it's not gonna save us money, then we're not gonna do it. I mean, if they need 80% or whatever, and we're not saving any money, we won't do it. So we gotta wait, figure out all that, negotiate with Dr. Hill, see what the split's gonna be, because we don't know that yet.
Can I follow up then? Do both boards individually have a target goal for savings? I mean, obviously, Waterloo, you investigated a couple opportunities that didn't pan out because the funds didn't work. What was the trigger point when you said, hey, and I think, Brian, you mentioned Monday that you're not going to spend 90 cents to save a dollar, lose Mr. Hill for 50% of the time. Okay? So the 10% savings is not worth it, but what is the trigger? Is it 30%? Is it 40%? Is it 5%? What's the number in your mind?
We haven't really gotten to the point where we've talked a lot about that. There's really, in my mind, again, I think we could probably get 10 different opinions here, but and that's some of the things that we, if we decide to move forward, those are the kind of things we have to work through. But in my mind, you're really looking at, there's two ways to split it. 50-50 or by a student body size. And that's two, I mean, that's, in my mind, you would split it accordingly. If you're splitting it by student body, you would split the pay the same way and the time the same way. If you're splitting it 50-50, you would split the pay and the time the same way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I've already done my spreadsheets with all those scenarios.
Okay, so
I'll be happy to share it with you.
we haven't really sat and talked about what we think we could save or what the amount is. It has to be, we really had very, very, very little discussion about this whole process, other than Monday night and tonight. I mean, we're kind of a fact-finding mission to see if it's something that the communities are going to buy into and like, and get the community input, to see if each other boards also buy into it. Both boards have to buy into it, and it has to be something Dr. Hill feels comfortable with. So there's so many things. It's kind of like we haven't gotten to the point where it's really at this time where we negotiate any kind of a contract between the two of us and Dr. Hill, or pay or split. At some point we have to work out, is it going to be a 50-50 or is it going to be by student body? Those are the kind of things that if we get past the first hurdles, then we would work our way into those kind of things.
I got a question. When you did the other shared services and they didn't work out, was it because of money, logistics? Why didn't they work out?
I can address that. The first one, we had an unexpected opening in our transportation building and grounds about this time 2 years ago. And when I inquired with area districts, they just didn't have interest for that potential. When we had the food service opening that came about through retirement we were expecting last summer, we were in some pretty serious negotiations with Southeast. But at the end of the day, it would have cost us almost the same amount of money to have a part-time person than it would have for what was being asked in that scenario. So it made no sense to pay the same amount of money for somebody who was part-time. And when we get into the question that's being asked back here, well, we don't have a dollar amount. Our goal at Waterloo is to put teachers back in the classroom. So we know what it costs us roughly to bring a teacher in, and it just makes sense to us if we're able to achieve those type of savings to be able to put somebody back in the classroom for the kids. So we have not had those discussions like Brian said, but we kind of have an idea of what it is we're trying to do, to be able to do that. And how does something like that with food service happen? You know, that position up until for us, up until a couple of years ago, was a union position. The person that was in there had worked their way out, they were making what they were. When you look at what we paid for the food service position compared to what the going rate is for a food service person, and we were almost half of that. So in that particular situation, it just didn't work out because we had been paying under market value for the position for years.
So right now, just by you making the statement that you'd like to put a teacher back in the classroom, that's probably about a $50,000 savings by the time you get every benefits and starting salary. Design.
That's the figure for a teacher back in the classroom. I don't know if that's the exact target.
Well, that's, you make a statement, I mean, we gotta start somewhere with what we wanna say, because that's what's gonna trigger where we're gonna start a salary, we're gonna start splitting. So if I'm gonna start at a $200,000 salary, and we're not, if we start at $200,000, and we say 50 out, we gotta start working that way back up the financial chain to see what it's gonna take and how that's gonna break down too. Right now, you're looking $50-some thousand for a teacher here, you know, just out of pocket. So that's a place to start if we're looking for a $50,000 savings. In numbers that I've run, just with current salaries as they are, bumping it up a little bit for the salary of about $150, I'm only looking at a $30,000 savings. So for $30,000, I don't know how much resource we're gonna put to get a halftime superintendent. That's just my thought to start this discussion with this. Because we need to get down to dollars, and then I need to know what you can do academically here. Because in the end, I need, it's like student athletes. You're a student and then an athlete. You're not an athlete and a student. So I need academics before I need financial. And that sounds bad, but we're here to educate kids as a service. So I think we're all sitting here with that statement and that knowledge. So we have to figure out what that number is and work backwards from it.
I think that's what, so I think, we're looking at, does it make sense academically first? And then if it makes sense academically, can the money match? I mean, we're not, the real thing is, does it make sense academically? We cover the program, we cover the classrooms, the duties. Is he gonna be able to do it? Is the community gonna be able to accept it? All those kind of things. And then, I think then you look at what kind of a cost savings you can have, whether it's, like you said, I agree with you, it's academics. What we need to look at, more than academics, is the function of the building, right? That kind of thing.
I had the opportunity to talk to a Ripon school board member. They're one of the guys that they have shared services. It's Ripon, Northville, and Southeast. And we were kind of hitting on that about, where do you start as far as even thinking about doing something like this? And we didn't talk about a specific number, but he said that as they put the deal together and started meshing and working out the little details of the things, that they started sharing other things as well. And the little savings here, the little savings here, the little savings here started adding up to other things. He made mention that they pay for all their seniors' ACT tests. Because what they did was they combined the three schools, became a testing station, and then took the money that they made and they paid for their sophomores, for their ACTs, which I think is $75 or something like that every time they take it. So, I mean, you may not hit your target number, and I guess we have to find a mutual target number somewhere, but we may not hit it to begin with, but as we start peeling back the layers of this thing and start seeing, well, if we can share this and we can share this, I think the numbers might start, adding up a little bit more. I don't know. It's a new concept. I guess that's the whole point of us getting together, trying to peel back the layers of exactly what we're trying to do.
The superintendent secretaries that I spoke with hit on the same topic as far as vendors. being able to, pool the two schools together and get better pricing as far as, their vendors. So there again, that's a savings too.
That's something we can do without being sharing superintendent.
Correct.
So that's just an option that's out there for all of us.
Just so the public knows too, that the shared superintendency that Mr. Jones just described includes 3 school districts sharing 1 superintendent. It started off with 2, and they've added a 3rd district sharing 1 superintendent out in, I think, Wayne County.
One thing I do want to bring to attention is that, the superintendent is not actively inside the classroom teaching the kids. That's what we have other teaching professionals for. What our superintendent is bringing is direction, consistency, and management. We have, Dr. Hill's done a great job for us with that. That's why I'm thinking more of the 50-50 is my impression of what I visualize a shared superintendent as, rather than going by student population. Your superintendent is going to provide direction. He's going to provide management, and I believe he's capable of providing that on a 50% basis.
Do those schools that are sharing the superintendent have assistant superintendents in place?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I have some research on that. Rittman and Orville share an assistant superintendent. Rittman also shows 2 directors of operations on their list also, and Orville shows a faculty manager, a director of people services, an elementary case manager, and transportation supervisor. The Southeast has a district manager.
Have they done that from the beginning, or is that still?
That I don't know. I had somebody email this to me that had done the research, and it's what's up on their websites when you went to each individual website. I don't know how long they've been there. I didn't do that part. I just am sharing what I was given and as far as information from websites. I'm sorry for this thing bumping around. He's getting some tape to take this thing, because so if it came on Booster or Philip can take me up here and I'll stop making a bunch of noises.
I spoke to John Ritchie, who's the superintendent that shares the 3 districts on a few different occasions. Their Rittman happens to be in our similar district for comparison to the state. So as Waterloo, over the last 2.5 years, has gone through the reductions that we had because of funding, I've made it a point to contact the other 19 districts in our similar grouping across the state. So that's led to some conversations with John Ritchie on a couple of different occasions. And my understanding of it, I could be wrong, but my understanding of it in those conversations was it started with the superintendent and it's kind of grown. And I followed up with him again a few weeks ago. And the way that I understand it is they have openings that happen within these districts. And I would assume that the list that Mrs. Mayred will probably start to infiltrate more into Southeast too, not because he said that, but because as openings happen, it seems like they then take those shared people and plug them in rather than hire others. That was my understanding.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit confused in terms of, we're talking about shared superintendency. So the savings can't be spread out throughout the food service and other things, because those will happen after this move. So I would almost like to see us focus on the shared superintendent issue, because I think it's easier to figure out if we'll save money. Because the other things I think will be down the line, and they will be forthcoming, if we share this service, which I call leadership. I don't call it. I think that's very much. And then I think what'll follow is other kinds of shared services, which could almost be a starting point with somebody else.
Sorry, just Nancy, you talked about a timeline, because my gut feeling says we would need to try it for a year and see if we can work, but a lot of groups in our community said we need some consistency from the superintendent. So that what they've said is that by mutual agreement of the employing boards of education and the superintendent, they would decide whether to terminate the contract. I've also seen situations where they've said, give 6 months notice that they're going to terminate the contract, so there are ways out of it if it's not working. And then there's one statement that I saw from one of the agreements I looked at that I thought was really good. It says, if at any time the districts determine that the shared superintendent arrangement does not serve the best interests of the students, parents, community, or employees of the districts in conjunction with the shared superintendent will explore alternative arrangements, which may include a return to a more traditional employment for the superintendent. And so I like that, that clause as well. That's just based on my research. Does anyone else have
I
a?
think maybe you're referring to the timeline as to where we're going with this process. Is that what you're asking, or you're asking on contracts? So if we go that far.
Well, I think initially the contract is the first thing. I was, we've heard a lot of people say with consistency, have at this point failed. But it did work, kind of a clause like that. Any other questions?
From a contract, from a timeline standpoint, in my mind, and I think most people, it's, if this is something that proceeds, the time is right, you just kind of move into it after all the due diligence is done. I don't know that much about the current situation, how long you have the current superintendent, how long that's going to last, all those kind of things. Timelines on that, but just work through the process and make sure all the diligence is covered and everybody's happy and we're going. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no reason to rush it. I think you guys have a superintendent for some time yet, and so obviously we want to make sure it's the right thing to do before you do it. And then I like the idea of for everybody's protection, we need to have an out clause that says whether it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever, hey, somebody says, gives the other board and the superintendent the warning, say 3 months from now or 6 months, whatever, we can 3 months or 9 months, whatever it is, we want to get out of this.
Just one other comment, I think it's important to, like Laura said, see if, like, the view of the districts, but I want to see a dollar amount of what we're going to save, personally as a voter in the community. So even though we're saying we were going to wait to see that amount, that's what I want to see. Can we truly bring it to that? If it's going to save us $20,000 or $30,000, I just want to know.
Another thing, other than academics and savings as far as money goes, one thing that we're always looking for in the Waterloo district is what's going to happen down the road. And unfortunately, we never know what the state's going to do. But we'll know a little bit more in May, we'll know a little bit more in June, and then we'll know more next year at the same time. So what it looks like right now, what the governor is saying is we could be, and Andy, you can jump in any time, but what we could be in 2 years in worse situation than we were before our levy passed because of what the way the state's lessening our government. So we're constantly looking at what's going to happen on the road. So it may be a small savings at this point, but in 2 years, if it'll help us keep, may not, I mean, we may add one, but it may just help us keep another teacher. And right now, we are at almost at state minimum. We're really running on bare bones. So we don't want to lose anybody else. So we're constantly looking at these things to make sure that we don't lose anybody else too. So that was another driven factor for us. And then the other thing with the contracts, I believe that I know that most superintendent's contracts run from August 1st to July 31st. So I'm not sure of your situation, but I believe your superintendent is contractually here until July 31st. So I think all of us in the back of the mind are thinking August 1st for that reason. But also it was mentioned the other night that you have board members, Field has board members, 3 board members that are up for election in November, so that could change. And they suggested that, someone in the audience suggested that you had an interim superintendent at that point from the ESC or something like that. And the more I thought about that after Monday night was, if you think this might work at all, and it might save you money at all, why not have Dr. Hill be your interim superintendent? And then if it does work, and even if you get 3 new board members and they see it working and it is working, then you've got someone who's got 6 months experience with your school district instead of someone that you have to hire in January, or if you decide to hire him in December, you're not going to have someone in place by January. You'll be lucky to have someone in place by March. So you would have someone who would have 6 months history with your school district who could, you know, and it could save you money. So that was just a thought. Someone commented on that the other night. If you're going to bring in someone from the ESC, I just think it would be better if this would work for those school districts, that you would have someone that would be here that truly wants to do this, and they already have 6 months history.
Can I address the water board, just a question, since it's in regards to contracts? All 4 of the administrative contracts are expiring July 31st of this year. And I know some of this is confidential, so we can't discuss, but where are you at with Mr. Hill's contract and Mr. Carpenter's contract? Because I have their contracts right here, and all 4 of them are done July 31st of this year. So, have we mentioned that? I know you can't discuss it, I've read the minutes, and you're in discussion with employment with Mr. Hill. It's past the March 1st deadline, so I'm going to assume he at least has a 1-year contract, and
Yeah,
Mr. Carpenter does.
Automatically, when we didn't do anything by March 1st, I think it was whatever the date was.
March 1st.
He rolls over to another 1-year contract. And that was not in any way, shape, or form a reflection on Todd, his service or how he's done. I read a statement at our Waterloo meeting that Todd has been with us, and I called it 17 years, 18 years, Todd. And he's never had, he's had a clean audit every time. And his work is so exceptional that David Yost, the auditor of the state, has asked Todd to serve on the auditor of the state's regional advisory board. So we are very fortunate, and we have Mr. Carpenter, but we have not. We are just looking at the best way to move forward with this.
And also because we've been in the financial situation we've been in, we haven't been able to, we've only been able to do that on everybody else. So we want to make sure that they're taken care of before, and we know that they'll be here for another year because we know we passed that deadline. So we want to make sure our staff and our teachers are covered.
It's not really fair to give one person a 4 or 5-year contract and everybody else is doing.
I agree, I just noticed when I was researching, it's kind of ironic that all, you talk about how low you are administrators at Waterloo, and then I'm looking at contracts that all 4 of them expire on the same day. So it was just kind of, even more, just 2 and 3. So you don't have everybody, exiting they had to.
Yeah, well, we've been in constant communication. So it's not like we did it by accident. It's all about.
It's just just asking what was at and the status of it, just as an understanding of it. 'Cause all of our contracts are solid for at least 2 or 3 years, our administrators. I keep coming back to this shared service stuff of where it all came about. I know a lot of it came out of Columbus and everybody, how many people here that sits on this table up here attended the shared service seminar at OSBA in November? Anybody else attended? I guess I just want to know where it comes from and why the big push. And I watched the live stream of what was happening, and somebody made a comment that this is what the state is going towards. But that's not what I'm reading on the Auditor of the State's website. It's still a local decision. It's not coming, it's not mandated out of Columbus. It's still up to the locals to do. You get on Skinny Ohio, you can read it right there, and that's exactly what it says. So. And I understand that Dr. Ross is the one that wrote the Beyond Boundaries. I have that too. He is now your ODE, but this still, I don't understand how you share leadership type positions. And we have, as this board, the field board, has already had in printed documents that we have a communication issue and we have an issue with, we all recognize that field ran better with 2 people. And now we're wanting to go from 2 people that went to 1 person, and now we're going to a half a person. So I can't get that logistics out of my head as to how and why anybody wants to go that way. I mean, I don't know why you want to do this. I mean, I got questions. What do you want to do this for? You know, you're looking at, you're doubling your personnel, you're doubling your staff, and I get it. You know, 1 person does this, and it's this many people, whatever. There's a lot of stuff here at Field that needs fixed, and I know there's a lot of stuff that Waterloo needs fixed. I posted on my Facebook page when the announcement for both meetings came up, and I had 2 veteran retired teachers that were actually teachers when I went to Waterloo say that they liked what you did, but Waterloo has problems to fix too. You got your levy passed. Field has not got a levy passed in 4 times. We have financial issues here, so I need to know finances. I need to know what you're going to do academically, what is your plan to come in here, and what are you going to change, and how are you going to keep it going? I mean, you have to have some kind of plan. You're looking at you come prepared with everything. You can't tell me you don't have a dollar amount in your mind, what your intent is, and how you're going to get it done. Because that's not the type of person I think that you are sitting there. So I guess that's what I'm going to ask you is, what are you going to do, what's your plan, and how are you going to do this? And please don't change our logo again. Because I've been through 5 and everybody wants to change our logo.
Could I add something into that, this is just something that, I didn't come up with this, a nice lady prepared this for me, and this is just, I'm just comparing, I'm not blaming or anything, it's just what it is. Well, right now, Waterloo is no, you know what, here, pass it down if you will. I got each one, or one for each of you. Right now, Waterloo is effective from 4th through 8th grade. Now, Field is excellent with distinction, 4th through 8th grade. And as you see some of those numbers, there's a big discretion there. Now we're talking about financial things, and Waterloo passed its levy, and we haven't passed a levy in who knows when. I gotta behave myself. We're replacing our superintendent after these numbers here, even though apparently we're doing on less money, so we must be doing something good, and somebody has to take credit for this. Who it is, I don't know for sure, I'm not gonna say, but anyhow, do you see, here's another discrepancy here. Supposedly, we can't pass the levy, we need a superintendent, you guys passed the levy, but your education numbers are not as good as ours, but you have a good superintendent. So, I mean, I guess that's why I'm up here. I don't even know what to say to the situation, honestly. I just let it go to the room right over here. She's got all that information up in her head, just spinning around. But anyhow, go ahead.
I think you asked why, initially, why would I want to do this? And I think the answer is, this is what I've talked to the board about before too. You know, the reason that we've looked at these things over the last couple of years, and the reason that I'm interested in this right now, is because of the situation that Waterloo has gone through and continues to go through. You know, we are a district that 2.5 years ago was excellent with distinction. Last year, when they had the preliminary results that were coming out on how the new report card was going to be at that time, and they had our data from the year before, we were the best in Portage County in many of those areas. And what's happened to our district over the last few years is we've cut over $2 million out of a budget that was a little over $10 million to begin with. And while we've done our best to stay away from cutting the core, what's happening in the classroom, we've made significant cuts there. And if you dig into our numbers and take a look at these a little further than what's here, what you'll see is that our students that are struggling greatly are the students who need the most help. And those are the students that we've taken away the resources from. because class sizes are now in the mid-30s. We've reduced the number of tutors and other support staff that we have for special education, which is 21% of the population. We've reduced the amount of support staff that we have for economically disadvantaged, which has doubled for us in the last 2.5 years. We went from 17% to over 35 or 36%. And so during that time, we have people that are probably working harder than ever in the buildings, our teachers, our principals, our other support staff, and we're not seeing the results that we were seeing prior. And as a superintendent, you have leadership is important and setting that direction. And, personally, I was at Crestwood Middle School before it, Catholic schools before that. Okay, but in Crestwood, the building that I was principal of went from continuous improvement to excellent, made AYP, and after it hadn't made it for a number of years, and got out of school improvement status. What's the difference there? Good people, everybody's working hard. The difference was there was a heck of a lot more resources there. Are there things that we need to do differently at Waterloo? Sure. There's different things we have to do differently everywhere. I've never been at a place, even St. Francis de Sales with their 20 AP classes, and kids going all over the country into these prestigious colleges where I was principal. Even there's a lot of work that can be done differently. So I look at these, and it's disappointing. It really is. And ultimately, it's a reflection on me, I don't doubt that. But I can tell you that didn't come about because I don't believe there was direction. And it didn't come about because people aren't working hard every day to do that. Many contributing factors.
Yeah, and I understand that. How can you take away, like you said, $2 million and then expect to keep the excellent with distinction? But I mean, yeah, I understand. I'm not trying to.
No, I understand that. But when we were excellent with distinction, our community didn't want to support a levy either. We went through that. That was the time that I started, and we went through 6 failures, or 5 failures before we finally passed it here in February. And we kept telling the community, as this is happening through all these forums and everything else, that look, this is what we're losing. This is what's happening. These things are going to start showing up somewhere. And ultimately they did. So as we look at this, and it goes back to the question of why, we want to be able to do everything we possibly can to do 2 different things. One, be true to our community. We told them that levy that they passed, barring some unexpected thing that we got finances cut elsewhere we weren't expecting, would last 5 years. But we also told them that it was keeping things status quo. That's what they told us. When we had higher amounts, they told us you cut those. You give it to us for as small as you can for as short a period of time as you can. And so we did that, knowing that if we passed that levy in February, we can't bring back the stuff that was cut. And so as we continue to do all of this analysis within our district, the dollars that we're trying to save are dollars that we're hoping to be able to put back into the classroom to give more resources. And so I personally see that as one of the major issues that would lead this board to consider something like this. I'm sure Sherry, as superintendent, isn't on their list of top 10 things they would do if finances were great. But at the same time, me personally, I see it as an opportunity for that, for our kids. And then secondly, on a personal level, I look for different challenges. And I don't know, you ask about a plan for field, I can't tell you that I have a plan for field. I can tell you how I operate. I can tell you the things that I think I would do if given the chance to do it. But until I actually were to be here and have an opportunity to hear more from you, from the employees, from the students, and from the community, how I ever come in here with some plan in mind to begin with and try to impose that when I haven't listened.
Well, I think you start with a guide of what you have done and where you go and the person that you are, and then you take off from there. And I don't expect you to have it written down, you're gonna do this on this day, this on this day. But you have to have some kind of intent of why you're doing this. I mean, this is, we haven't passed the levy, we need to pass the levy. You know, you're gonna, if we bring you in here and you start August 1st, I've got a new superintendent, and I've got a levy that needs to be passed, and you don't know anything about this community. I mean, just by something that you had just stated, you know, about the resources in your classrooms and where they've gone, it sounds like what we need to do is more collaboration with districts, not necessarily sharing of the superintendent position, but put one in each building and like share our internal resources as far as staffing. Mr. Jones, you made a comment I've seen about virtual classrooms. You know, you could put the little camera up. We've got special ed here. You know, we've got a curriculum director here. We have those services that we could share if we had two people running the school, talking and making the rest of the pyramid work. So I'm not buying totally into the whole sharing of that top position. And until I see where it's going to go and pan out and then even the dollars, but it still needs to be, we still have to put resources in those classrooms. And I haven't heard anything right now that is telling me we're going to put that in those classrooms because you're still sitting at 30s. We're still sitting where we're at. You have a levy. We don't have a levy. And we're going to have to make more cuts. I mean, 5-year forecasts are awful for both of us. And it's the economy. And it's out here. And it's just what it is.
Maybe that would be the place to start. You know, the whole point of having these meetings is just to ask the community, you know, what do you guys think of this? You know, it's a new concept to us. It's a new concept to you know, the schools in Ohio. If I'm not mistaken, like North Carolina, where a friend of mine lives, they have one superintendent per county.
It's a county.
And yeah, that's, and I'm not sure how the leadership trickles down from there.
How about in Florida, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
in Florida, your board is elected and your superintendent is elected. And whoever's running for superintendent, if they don't like the board, so what? That's something like the Medina was reading, so.
Well, so, I mean, just the whole concept of, you know, going back and neighbor helping neighbor. You know, I mean, it took us forever in many sleepless nights, and I lost all my hair.
Mine's going great, so we're good.
Trying to pass this levy. You know, you're right, maybe that's the place to start small and start big. I don't know, that was, like I said, it's just the whole point of getting everybody together and saying, what do you think? Because, you know, we have to make sure that the community is going to back this up. And if they're not with us, that means they're against us, and I don't like anybody not liking me. So
we have to, as board members, listen to our community, what they really want.
as a board member, I'm their voice. They elected me to sit here and speak for them and, you know, beat him up every now and then when we have to. But we've only wrestled once, arm wrestled, and I lost, believe it or not. But it's just, yeah, you're right, we're the voice of the community and to make those decisions, so.
And to get back to something else you had asked, and this came up on Monday night too. So just to clarify here, nobody from the state has come to Waterloo and directly and said, in 2 years, this is what you're going to do it now, okay? But what has happened is that, you know, over time, when you sit back and you look at this stuff, we had a number of forums. The most recent one in January, we had Kathleen Clyde, we had Senator John Eckman, we had Roger Hardin from the Ohio Department of Education. He's the gentleman, he may be retired now, he was coming back, but he was the one, you know, that places into fiscal caution to begin with. We had Janet Esposito, and we had Bill Stauffer, who's the superintendent of Springfield, that had been in fiscal emergency. And when you listen to that, and you listen to what the options are, and in our case, like Lisa mentioned before, We had the state-run numbers, 6.5 staff members above state minimum, 6.5 or 7.5. And so we didn't have enough to cut. The next time we would have had to make cuts if we hadn't passed this levy in February. And so you look at that, you look at how much time and effort and energy went into passing something in a community that's been hit really hard by this recession. Or, like I mentioned before, free and reduced lunches doubled. We had empty houses all over the place, and the list goes on and on and on. And then 2 days after we passed this levy, or a day or 3, I don't know what it was, but no sooner than we pass it, we get a spreadsheet from the state that shows that we go from not being on the guarantee to being $1.1 million on the guarantee. We are 54 students above it under the current model right now. We go 1.1 on if the governor's proposal goes through as is. And I know you're in a different situation to the positive, but for us, we go 1.1 million on right away. And sitting there thinking, how in God's name can Waterloo do anything different here? I mean, there's no way that we're going to be able to go back to this community in 2 years if his proposal goes through and say we need more money and think that there's any likelihood that a community that's tapped out is going to be able to get it. So back to Roger Hardin, when he's at our meetings, and he was with us twice, every time he talks about Ohio Revised Code and what the options are. And he's told us the options are either you go into fiscal emergency, you borrow money that's yours from future years, and by the time you finally pass the levy, it'll be like places like Little Miami, where instead of passing 6, you're passing 14. Or you consolidate, but to consolidate, to use his words, you have to find a dance partner. And good luck finding a partner that wants to consolidate with you when you have a bunch of no votes and you're carrying all this debt. And what's laid out in Ohio Revised Code, and from that meeting, this seemed to surprise both Kathleen Clyde and John Eklund. But in Revised Code, to consolidate, both communities have to vote on it and approve it. So what's the likelihood of that happening? So when we look at that and we make statements like, we think this is the direction that things are going to go in the state, what are the other options? You know, I mean, there's something that has to give at some point for these smaller districts, and absent the state making some kind of a significant change or forcing consolidation on places, shared services seems to be the way that it has to go. And then with that being said, if that's the direction that we believe it's going to go, why wouldn't we want to be, personally, I'd rather be on the front edge of it, even though it's not a unique idea, and have the ability to shape it for Waterloo and whoever we share with, than be on the tail end of it and have it done to us and be reactive and sit back and watch that occur. So that's the mentality that I think at least I come with, and I think it's fair to say for Waterloo, is we're just trying to be proactive, and we're trying to do what we can within the limited means that we can. And we're tapped out. The community's tapped out. Our people are stretched as thin as they can be. And we're just trying to be creative and do what we can to try to put some resources together.
And I agree, both communities are tapped out, but we're still talking about shared services. I guess we need to change to shared resources. Instead of services, we need to start sharing the resources amongst the districts of the food services and the transportation stuff, because Frank Hummel come in and he talked to us, and he asked us point blank in the room from, I think he's OBE also, made a comment of sharing a transportation supervisor. What's the difference between 20 buses and 40 buses? They're still doing routes, it's just a few more routes. So they're doing the same stuff in that capacity. Since both of us have classroom needs, I would like to venture and look into classroom resources of sharing rather than, and then have somebody at the top of each place delegating. Because leadership is, again, delegation also. So you start at the top and you start figuring out where we can start working together on helping you with the special ed kids and start doing that kind of resource, because we aren't that far apart as far as driving distance either.
The lady in the green in the front here. Oh, where? But okay. Oh, sorry.
Anyways, the question was asked by this gentleman up here, what do you think? I think this is a horrible idea to actually try to share a superintendent between two districts. I expect the superintendent to be able to give 100% to their district, and I don't see how you guys can actually, say that, yes, you can split one person between two districts, yet still be able to give 100%. That's not logical. I just think you're trying to spread your frosting too thin in this situation. That's all.
Lady in the green.
I spoke Waterloo as well, but as a curriculum person, very worried that you're saying they're stretched so thin, and I'm very concerned about what's coming down the pipe as far as what the administrators and principals are going to be required to do. There's a new evaluation process that the state is going to require, evaluating every teacher every year, and a lengthy evaluation. Pre and post conferences on each one of those evaluations, some action plans that may have to be taken care of. So
I'm very concerned about the academics, and I understand the fiscal part here. I really, really do. What I'm asking tonight is for you to not forget about the academic and what's coming down the pipe with the new standards, the new code, the new assessments. If anybody got the Academic Journal, you saw an article in the paper tonight that talked about exactly what I said on Monday. Our kids that score accelerated and advanced in the current testing and assessment process, with the new tests that are coming down in 2014, they will more than likely be proficient. So that means our kids that are scoring proficient now would be in the limited and the basic. So we are, as a nation, are going to see these test scores go down. I anticipate that happening. And what concerns me is the instruction that's going to occur in the classroom based on these new standards. And this is where I think that we can share. With the mapping that needs to be done with the new standards, with the professional development that needs to be provided for the administrators and the teachers, and I think Waterloo had already indicated, you guys have started that with that. That's the type of stuff that can be shared. It's the same standards. It's going to be the same assessment for all of us. So why not take that opportunity to share those services with professional development? For example, if Waterloo had a 5th grade team that did a curriculum map based on the new standards that they were already done and knew that process, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could borrow them, have them come over to field for the 5th grade teachers and run through that process as well, and then, reciprocate on that. So those are the type of things that I see as districts we can share, and I agree that we need to start small with support services, and then eventually, I agree with Dr. Hill. I think 3 to 5 years down the road, this is the way it's going to be. But right now, with everything that's coming down and all the changes that are going to be made, it is so difficult for one person. And in Waterloo, you have 2 administrators, is that correct? Those 4 people are going to be evaluating, and, I'm not sure when you say about being stretched, oh my goodness, I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like. So it would be really, really difficult for that. So that's what I'm asking. Let's explore this throughout this year, figure out what we can do right now, and then go from there.
I wanted to make just one more point. I was at the meeting on Monday and I congratulated the Waterloo board and thanked them for having an informational session that we had a lot of give and take for, and that was nice, and I think thank you again for doing that. But 2 questions came up either from the board discussion or from the audience of people that I talked with, and those questions haunt me. One was, what is wrong with the field schools? In my heart, and hearing those numbers, I don't think there's a lot wrong with the field schools. And the second question that haunts me is, why did the superintendent resign? That haunts me still to this day. So, as I apologize to the Waterloo Board Monday night for showing our frustration, I am still frustrated, and I think some of these things need to be ironed out in my mind, and I just represent one person in the community.
The one gentleman up here had said that it's what the community wants. You guys go along with what your community wants. You want to please the community. Several of our board members are not in for that. Because if it was about what the community wanted, they would have never accepted Mrs. Coleman's resignation the night she resigned.
One of my main concerns is that the field board publicly has issues communicating with one another. When meetings are canceled, some board members aren't even told. They have to find out through other avenues, like the newspaper. When we share a superintendent, you guys have to work as a team, just like the communities have to work as a team. How does the Waterloo board feel about coming into coworkers that can't communicate with each other and they're supposed to communicate with you guys?
Well, it's just like any other team, you have to have open and honest and transparent communications. And you have to be looking for, there has to be a win-win for everybody involved. And you have to operate that way. Somebody's trying to get the leg up or take advantage of the other, things just won't work out.
And we need to wait till November for
And
this
that's
decision.
why you have escape clauses, and, I apologize, I really don't know your board members very well, I've heard some of the names, I've seen some of the things on paper and this and that, but I really don't know them at house. At Monday's meeting, I think Larry attended one of our Waterloo meetings about a year or two ago.
Yeah, that was before I was ever on field board. I just wanted to see what I was getting myself into.
You lost your hair too.
That's a good look, though.
The chicks seem to dig it, so.
So you have to have open and honest and transparent communication. And, that's something that we would just expect, and I'm sure that we'd expect it from them, and they would expect it from us.
Then I would hope that the Waterloo would seriously consider waiting to make a decision until after November and get some board members that can communicate into our office.
Can I say something real quick? We're not, I don't believe we're here to try to talk you all into this. Because, I'll speak for myself. I'm starting my second year as a board. I have 4 boys. I graduated from here in 1977. It was a big red back then. We weren't even the Falcons. Mr. Kelsey was one of my heroes, and still is. Vince Sismar. Some of the greatest times that I ever spent in my life was inside this building. And when, this whole thing about me getting on the board and me trying to make things better, not only for my 4 sons, but for all these kids. I want to do this without crying. I broke down at a school board meeting once, and they always bring me a handkerchief or a box of Kleenex every time. We saw this opportunity to help the field schools, my home school, my alma mater. I got really excited about it, but I don't want you guys to think that we're here to try to talk you into anything. It's just the whole point of, this is new to us. It's new to me. I can make decisions as a father as far as the how the school should be, but now I'm making decisions that's gonna affect 1,200 kids. So I wanna make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And, you know, I just don't want you all to think that we're trying to talk you into this. The whole point is, what do y'all think of this? What about this whole concept or whatever, about whether it be administration or the services, or do we really need to start small, or do we just jump in the pool? You know, I mean, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about since we had the meeting on Monday, you know, we have some great community groups. We have the PTO, the KPO, and we have a great group that just kind of formed about 2 years ago. It's the Waterloo Community Action Committee. And from Mr. Kosky was telling me, or I think it was Tom that told me that you guys have a group like that as well. Maybe you guys, you know, we're kind of limited on what we can do because if three of us get together, we can't talk about things legally. So, but maybe you guys get together and take some of the things that we've shared tonight, and I'm sure that you all come up with probably a lot more things that we need to look at. You know, so maybe that would be the next step as well, because we're looking for the next step after this meeting. What do we do? You know, so maybe those two groups get together and kind of come up with a thing, and you know, and you've asked us a lot of questions. Now we're going to ask you, what do you expect, or what would you like to see? Does that make sense?
Somebody in the back. Sorry about this.
Good evening, my name is Robert Keller. I formerly served on the field board for about 15 years. And I may be looking at this differently than some others here, but I think I would like to take the opportunity to commend both boards for exploring the possibility of shared services. I think that the state of Ohio, through whatever wisdom they use in funding and economics, is pushing all local government and school districts in that direction. I don't think they've mandated it, but I think there is certainly a trend starting to move in that direction. What I see, though, is that the Waterloo Board and the superintendent have taken a very different path to getting here tonight than what the field board has. And I think that there's just a tremendous amount of baggage that the field board has that they bring to this process. And I think that's just going to make things very, very difficult. For example, you know, we've never gotten a clear answer about when some of the conversation began between board members about this process. And did that conversation begin while we still had a superintendent? And my sense is that that conversation did begin while we still had a superintendent in place. And I also wonder if the conversation hasn't also taken place between board members, between both districts, about the treasurer's position, about possibly sharing the treasurer's position. And as we sit here tonight, both districts have a treasurer. So if that's going to happen, you know, somebody's not person out here. And, you know, I don't like the way it has come about. And that makes it very difficult to sit and listen and try to plan for the future. I don't know, I just met Dr. Hill tonight. Seems like a fine young man. He speaks very well. I think he's got, you know, excellent credentials and probably has something to bring to the district. I think he has good vision for the future. But I don't know how our community is going to be able to openly have that dialogue and acceptance when there's such a divide about how our community and our board has gotten here. And that's going to be a difficult hurdle to overcome. Before I go up the floor, there's two ladies here that I want to say something very nice Shirley Mars, who has been a friend of mine for many, many years, and Diane Whittlesey also has been a friend of mine for many, many years. There have been rumors circulating. Apparently, I am a rumor monger in the community. I've been unnamed in the social media, but well written about. And, as rumors go, it's about spreading opinions far and wide that are unsubstantiated. And the rumor is that there was a meeting, this meeting was going to take place about 6 weeks or so ago. And despite the fact that I don't have much hair, that I share with a couple of you, what little I do have, I do have to get, I have to get a cut once in a while. And I've been seeing Diane for years and years and years. She's cut my hair. So despite the fact that on the social media it made it sound like I got in my car and drove down to her shop just to get information from her about this, what was going on between Field and Waterloo is completely erroneous. That never happened. I had no idea there was any discussion going on. She did mention it to me. I did mention to her. I said, I'm going to make a phone call when I leave. But anything I passed along came from a Waterloo board member. That means it's substantiated. And the fact that I talked to Shirley, and Shirley may have talked to some people, nobody is spreading rumors about, any of this. And I think highly, very highly of both of these ladies. And I just wanted to make sure that they aren't perceived as spreading erroneous gossip in the communities. I apologize to both of you. I'm trying to separate this straight.
This came up the other night, and I believe Mr. Kelsey's right talking about it, because I think we straightened it out. We met Larry and Allison the other night. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't pick them out of this crowd. I don't know the other board members, I never met them. And so we have never had a conversation. This is the first time we're meeting them tonight. There's not been any conversation going on. You might not be spreading rumors, but the rumor mill must have said that, because apparently the other night, the group that came from Field thought that we were there to settle a contract. That was not the case. That was the first time we met. I told him the same thing. You can look at my calendar, there's nothing planned out.
I had a haircut scheduled for tonight. I canceled it. We scheduled it for Saturday just to be sure.
But there's been no talk. That's why we're here.
I was looking at my phone, I wasn't being rude, but I was trying to look on my calendar, because maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, I met Terry for it was after the meeting date was set. Terry and I met in Maria's office just to kind of clean up the joint board meeting, and I think we talked about just how we were going to do both meetings, formality-wise, just basically, hey, we're going to see what everybody says, and that kind of thing. Next week, she'd be the moderator, that kind of thing. The meeting was less than an hour, and probably 45 minutes of that was not school board.
I've been on the school board, I got thick skin, I'm not worried about me. But I want to make sure that both of these ladies
We didn't want to,
understand.
Terry and I did meet, there was no, and everybody, I think everybody did that.
Thank you.
And Chief, in words you would understand, it's mutual aid. So I guess is what we're trying to do. We have, I think sometimes we become so frustrated about, not being able to pass a levy and stuff that we have kind of focused on the money issue sometimes and forgot about the kids, because it gets so frustrating. How many more, I am not good at telling somebody, by the way, you're not going to have a job next year. I really take that to heart, and it really bothers me, because, one of my best friend's daughters teaches here. And it's just, there are so many kids that have graduated from Waterloo that I know very well here in the last 5 years that want to get into education. And knowing what I know sometimes, how do you encourage a kid to get into education knowing that you're going to make very little money, take a whole lot of abuse? You have to love that. The love has to be there. I think I still hold the school record for cracks in 1 year for Bob Watson, if anybody remembers Mr. Watson. you know, since that, the court, I'm not saying you gotta beat a kid to get it, make it respect you, but it certainly made me respect Mr. Watson a whole lot more than some of the other guys, but it's just, I think that we focus sometimes too much on the money and not enough on the kids that we affect. I mean, you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Mr. Kowsey has always been a mentor, and even still today, I'll be 55 years old, I still look up to this man as one of the guys that helped shape the man that I am today. And Gino, I appreciate that, thank you.
As a community member for Field, I think we need to figure out what our options are. It sounds to me like in August, we're going to be without a superintendent for perhaps 6 to 8 months, and probably won't have one without a new board coming in. But that doesn't change the fact that we're not going to have one, or we're going to have someone temporary. So I guess our choice is whether we go several months with the temporary and have something new in, or we consider possibly working with you for a year, looking at all the shared services at the lower level, maybe having Dr. Bell, help us decide that, and at the end of the year, we can decide whether we want to continue with the shared superintendent, and maybe just take some of the recommendations of other shared services, save our money, and get another superintendent. But I think we need to figure out what our options are. I know we have a lot of water under the bridge here at Field, but we need to move forward and figure out what it is we need to do with the next year for as far as the superintendent goes.
I think this was addressed before, and it's a trust issue. Dr. Hill, I wonder what you can do. We have two communities here, one is Suffield, one is Brimfield. I feel the community has totally lost their trust in our school. And as our fire chief just spoke about a rumor, I would like to just read something to you, please. It is some emails, and on the last board meeting that we had here on March 11th, people asked questions about, did anyone ever talk to you about shared services or talk to you about coming club, anything like that? We were assured no. I would like to show you how trust has been so lost here. It's because we do not have transparency. The community does not trust what comes out of the mouth of our board. On March the 11th, this was our board meeting at 1 o'clock, Mr. Kettering had Jim Vopak contact you to ask if you were interested in looking at sharing services with Field. Dr. Hill was very interested. I spoke with Dr. Hill and invited him to our executive session tonight so we may conduct a preliminary interview to see if this is something we would be interested in doing. You were busy. You said you couldn't come to the meeting, but you would be there for the executive meeting. Keeping in mind, we were assured that there was no conversation. Email 2, Laura May, said, is the discussion of shared service a valid, permissible topic for executive session? Are services provided a matter of public discussion? Please provide proper wording for executive session and written documentation that confirms the legality of an executive session. And we remember in that meeting that it was mentioned, Mr. Kettering said, thanks, Laura, it should read for the purpose of discussion of employment of public official / superintendent. And that was done in that meeting. The fourth email from Laura May, can shared services for the superintendent for 2 separate districts be discussed in executive session? Terry Kettering said yes, because as of now, we are looking to hire him. This was at 4:16 before our meeting, 4 o'clock. Our meeting was at 7. At 4:28, Laura May said, who is we? And I was unaware that as of now, we're looking to hire him. At 4:56 before our meeting, Terry Kettering said, I meant nothing by the we. I guess it's a figure of speech. I just wonder how you're going to bring our communities together. We have been so split by this board. We've asked some to resign because we feel that we need to get some trust, some continuity back to our school, and that has not happened. I guess I'll rest my case, but I think that's what you'll find with the field system, and I wonder how that you can help bridge that problem.
Trust, in my opinion, is something that takes time to build. It's not something that comes because of a position or a title. Same with respect. And I think the way that you build trust is to show by your actions, not your words, exactly how you go about doing things in an open, honest, transparent way. And I've done my best at Waterloo to operate that way during the time that I've been there, and continue to strive to find ways to be open. But if I was given the opportunity to come in here, what I would tell one board member, I would tell 5. What I would communicate, what I would present to one, I would communicate with 5. At Waterloo, just about everything that we do, we have our meetings streamed live. All of the agendas and stuff are sent out ahead of time to whoever's on the listserv, to the communities. There's even if you saw our agenda tonight, you see this what we call the agenda detail sheet that's part of it. And at our regular meetings, if anything's not self-explanatory, there's an explanation for all of the items on why we're doing that. So I think it's through steps like that and just the constant day-to-day interactions and how you carry about yourself that trust is built. But it does take time to build, there's no doubt about that. And you start on that in day one. I appreciate you sharing that.
To go back to, sorry about that. I'd like to go back to the idea of the 50-50 split that we've talked about this evening and focus on the time specifically. And I'm just wondering, how would that work when Waterloo is about half the size of the field district? And like the lady said earlier, with the changes in OTAs and curriculum and that sort of thing, I know that leadership really requires that we are in the trenches and spending the time with the staff that's undergoing those changes. So I want to know, I think I have a pretty good idea about how many hours a week are you putting in at Waterloo, Andy, and also, Beth, how many hours a week would you say average for field?
I'd be guessing because I don't count. My wife's here; she could probably tell you better than I could. But I would be willing to bet on a given week somewhere between 60 and 80 hours. It just depends. At least, it's hard to say because I really don't track. I get over to Waterloo sometime around 7:30 roughly in the morning, and the earliest I usually leave is 5. Probably three nights a week at least. There's meetings that keep me there till 7, 8, sometimes 10. Some of our executive sessions 2 and 1 in the morning. So it just really varies. But this is definitely not, or has it ever been, whether it's an individual district or in a shared capacity. This is not a 40-hour week, 8 to 4, 9 to 5 job.
That's kind of interesting.
Okay, so
What I'm hearing is 70 to 80 hours a week, probably in Waterloo, about half the size of our district. A similar number of hours here. I'm sure that you're an ambitious man, but I'm just wondering, when would you sleep? How would that work? How could you spend the time in both places and get the job done?
I'd like to add.
And when would you have family time and all those kinds of things?
one more thing to the picture too. We also have a charter school that we sponsor, and we're required to do all that also. So go ahead and answer that in conjunction with
Sure.
question.
You know, I told, so when I had conversations with Waterloo and the night that I was over here with Fields, my comment to both of the boards has been, the boards have to come up with I guess what I would call a list of non-negotiables, which are, what are the things that you expect of a superintendent, whether that's in a shared service capacity. And, you know, to me, what I was hoping to be able to get out tonight is an understanding of whether those lists even mesh. You know, I mean, as I sit and assess the situation with the little bit that I know about the field district, from what I've researched and the conversation we had, I think the job looks a little different over here in many respects than it does at Waterloo. You know, you talk about things like curriculum and the testing and stuff, and there's more support staff here that's charged in some of those cases with the responsibility, I would guess, of solely focusing on that for the district. We don't have those things at Waterloo. You know, so where a lot of my time over there may be spent working with our principals and teachers on those issues, over here, it may look different where the focus areas need to be because of the support staff that's there. And you know, you can't, this came up Monday, and fully acknowledge you can't do everything you were doing in two places, or at one place in two. Not stupid, I understand that. But this has worked in other places across the state. I think there's a way to make this work if it's the right fit. And there's nothing that says that this is the right fit. We may have two completely different ideas of what this would need to look like in both districts. And if that's the case, you know, and both boards are set on those are what's needed, then that's probably the end of the discussion as far as this position goes, you know. And maybe that leads to other conversations like you suggested and Steve has suggested. I don't know, but you know, I think there's a way to do those things. But it has to be done, I think, in the direction of the board and what those core non-negotiables are.
So it would probably involve less in both places than what we currently have, is that correct?
We have to.
I guess that's a question to the board for you to think about, is what I'm hearing Andy say is that you really would have to develop some priorities, but it couldn't look the same as it does now because it wouldn't be humanly possible.
What I'm hearing also is that we need to come up with that list of expectations now to even be able to move forward and even move forward, because I want somebody here. I'm used to somebody here. I'm used to picking up the phone and calling somebody. Okay, I can handle change, but there's too many changes that are coming down that from the state that we have to keep up with. I've been on this board for a year and 3 months, and I've yet to focus on stuff that's moving forward in education. And catch up on everything and always be behind. And we're always trying to pass a levy. And you made a comment about jumping in the pool and drowning. I'm drowning. We are drowning here. And we're going to see numbers leave. We're going to see more kids leave. I mean, I got numbers of 199 kids that have left just going to public schools. I asked for more numbers as to what we have in community schools, because we forgot to include that. We've got another 105 kids that are out in community schools, and that doesn't count backup. And we've got another 39 kids that are homeschooled. And if you add all that together in money, that's almost $2 million. It's already gone. And if this decision isn't something that this community wants, more of them. There's probably not a person in this room that hasn't talked to or knows of parents that if shared services comes here, and nothing against Mr. Hill, okay? If shared services come here, they are leaving. Because there's no, I don't want to say it's impossible, but when you're going from full-time to half-time with twice so many students, twice so many responsibilities, and bumping up another 200 some employees, 2 more contracts, 2 more negotiations, no money, something's falling through the cracks. And it's not going to be my kids' education. they can't get the education of these kids. And that's what I see is going to fall through the cracks. Because there's no way, even with our support staff that we have, there is still everyday demands. I mean, I know of a parent that received a call from you in regards to their child's discipline issue because the principal was out of the building, so you had to handle it. I made a call to you and you weren't in the building, you were at the high school. So, and I understand you're not always in your office and I don't expect you to be. But something's gonna fall somewhere. Who's it gonna fall on? And the administrators don't have the statutory obligations and legalities to do stuff that a superintendent can do. So how are you gonna mesh? You have 3 contracts, we have 2. That's 5 contracts, 5 sets of grievances, 5 sets of issues, 5 sets of whatever, on top of the non-contracted or non-union people. That's a lot of people to be in charge of on top of it. And then to throw, make sure academics is there. I gotta see the picture, I gotta see the plan, I gotta see something that is telling me that I'm gonna save $30,000 to $50,000 for this. Logistically, this is insanity. It just is, and I'm game for new things. You know, Mr. Jones, you're a field graduate, I'm a Waterloo graduate. So.
I'm trading places.
Well, I always said, you know, you step up or down diversity, whatever. So it depends on what side of the fence, you know. I have a niece that still goes to Waterloo. You know, she's out there. So I have an invested interest in what Waterloo does too, as far as their education. I just want to know, I'm not willing to jump in that pool. There ain't no way. I don't like to swim that much and I ain't jumping in the pool. So we have to find out, I want to know exactly what we are both expecting, back and forth. Put it in print, start hammering those things out. But I'm not willing to give up a sole person in that leadership responsibility here. I've been through 5 superintendents and 5 treasurers since I've been here, intimately involved in 5 other campaigns, and I've heard everything known to man in this community for an excuse, reason, and justification, whatever. Waterloo, Randolph, Atwater, K to 12 all the way through. Brimfield, Suffield, still fight at softball games, community stuff. You gotta find a way to, and what has happened in this district over the past year and a half has divided this district, whether people want to believe it or not. It has. So we gotta figure out how to put it back together, how it's gonna move forward. I got people saying they're leaving, the shared service is coming, so there's more money going out. We still have a levy pass, nobody's saying they're gonna do anything until November anyways, until a new board is seated. Well, that's their prerogative, they're gonna run, what are they gonna do? I still have 2 years, and I have to keep this school going and fix whatever mess that we either gonna make or break. So, their expectations, we need that. That's where we need to go on everything before we start anything going further.
As you can tell, we got a pretty emotional state over here, and I'm not talking about just Laura either. I mean, you know, you talk about kids leaving, and I'm not the board here, but I work. I got this text message from a kid whose friend that I have, he went to Mogador because of the situation here. Mr. Stewart, I don't like Mogador. I wish I missed field so much. I mean, what are you supposed to say to something like that? And here I am coming to the meeting, but, you know, to me, we almost gotta fix what we got here before we can start moving forward. It just seems to me that way.
You know, I'd like to say something. I'd like to say something.
Okay, I think what happened at Field was, we made a decision to get rid of enrollment and didn't have a plan. And now we have a mess. We've got to go slow at, maybe this is a good idea, but not right now, because the decision was made to get rid of her without a plan. Now we're trying to fix it quickly, because what are we gonna do? We don't have a superintendent. We gotta do something quick, and nobody knows what they're doing. Not against Waterloo, it just has to go slow, and you have divided the community. It's really bad, and I said at every meeting, trust and trust. And you guys have lost it, and you've got to get that back. Or this, and you know, this is not a game. This is a big business. This is a school, and it's not a game to the people in the township. If we lose a school, if we lose the kids,
People do not want that to happen. And I think you're treating it like it's not a big deal and it's a game, and it's not a game. This is community, this is kids, this is their lives, this is this town. You guys have to have a plan before you go forward. Thank you.
We have a superintendent search going on at the same time. And Dr. Hill isn't the only thing we have going. So I think Mr. Bocat has got a couple applications you got in. Have you got any more today?
We got a couple resumes in.
Today? Okay.
Over the last couple of days, yes.
Okay.
I just have a quick comment here. I mean, we're all talking about, say, I don't need those. I think everybody can hear me. I'm like Steve, I don't need one. We're talking about a savings of $30,000 to $50,000 here. We lost field here, 300 kids total, it sounds like. Say 200 on a conservative end. If we can get our ducks in a row to retain the kids and regain the kids, 5 kids, 30 grand, 9 kids, 50 grand. There's your savings. We don't have to go this elaborate uncertainty at this point. Start small. I agree, both over here. I agree. You need to start small. But let's find a way to stabilize things, not scare the parents away, chasing the kids with them, and retain that money here in our district. Every kid takes $5,700. 5 kids, there's your $30,000 in savings. Just retain 5. You've got $30,000. Again, not even 10. You got $50,000 in savings. That's all I got to say.
Tell me when.
I just want to say, Dr. Nolan's done a great job for Waterloo. I don't have a problem with sharing, I just am concerned about sharing the field because of all this. I don't have a problem with sharing with more stable districts.
I've been here about 20 years. I really don't care which we do, as long as we fix it and we have a vision, we have goals, and we're all together going in the same direction. In business, this is not a bad idea. In business, we've been doing it for 15, 20 years. How it's being done or been done is what's messed it up. The board would work differently in communicating this stuff with the community and understanding this and laying out a plan and working together. It probably wouldn't be like this. I'm an HR director. Restructuring is not an uncommon thing. And how you do it is critical. And keeping the community, which we're all taxpayers, I don't want to see my property values. I've got 6 homes in this district. I'm paying a lot of money in taxes. From my kids are graduating. I'm not here because of my kids, because they're out of the school district. But from a community, as a community taxpayer, we need our board to get their act together. You guys got to cooperate. You got to get your vision to be one vision for this community. If you don't, it's going to keep spiraling down, and our property values are going to go up, and our kids are going to go up. So let's get it together. Thinking openly, everyone, all community needs to think open-minded. There's not a right or wrong answer here. It's getting on the same vision. What Mr. Hill is saying is the direction of the state, you can see it coming. Taxpayers are not passing levies because they don't want to pay any more taxes. They're going to have to save money one way or the other, but you're going to have to figure out how to do it and have the community support behind it, or it's never going to happen. Maybe you have to step back, like Brian said, and you got it, maybe this isn't the right time. Eventually, I believe it's going to be time. And Suffield, Greenfield, I'm not from here. I've lived here 20 years. I don't get the split. I don't get it. I think it's stupid. It's a nice community, water, even with water, who cares? Just be on the same page, going in the same direction.
superintendent for the last 20 years, I mean, have you been a stable district where you keep superintendents for 10 to 15 years? Or have you been a revolving door district? Because if Dr. Miller seems like an intelligent man, he might be the greatest guy for this position, but in 2 years, if you're offered a job in Columbus and you take this big job, then we're left finding another 1 in a million superintendent who can do this position. So what is your history?
We've been very fortunate. I've been on the board this is my 24th year. Dr. Hill, our most recent, this is your third year. Previous to that, we had a gentleman, Bob Wolf, who was helping Todd around 14 or 15, and he had been the high school principal previous to that. Before that, we had a gentleman by the name of Terry Miller, who was there for about 3 years. Before that, we had a gentleman by the name of Fred Cruz, I think he was there 7 or 8 years.
What happened to Mr. Harrison?
He was before Fred Cruz.
Okay.
He was by the room back then.
No,
So it's been pretty stable. Considering, especially when you consider the size of our district and the fact that we can't go out there and offer huge salaries like some bigger school districts can. We're even pretty low within our own county, let alone when you look at, the Akron's and the Greens and the Jacksons and the neighboring communities, even Marlington and those kind of places. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping.
I would say something. I think the staff we have, just by listening to you guys, and I know some teachers out there also, and the staff we have here do bust their butts to do what they do. And I guess that's the reason why I'm saying if we're looking at shared services, I would rather see shared resources to help our 240 people here and your 100 and some odd teachers you have there in the classroom, where it counts and where it matters, because that's what we're supposed to do. If we can get a way to share that information, technology. I mean, I know we have tech camps here in August. We have teachers that sign up for tech camps. How to do presentations, how to do PowerPoint, different things they offer. And it's just all done here at whatever buildings they set up. Why can't you guys come over and do it or join in? Stuff like that we're sharing knowledge also with each other to advance. I mean, this U-Street thing is great. I watched it the other night. It could go without the commercials, but, I never seen that before. But if we start sharing the resources in the classroom, which is where everybody is saying that we're losing kids for us because we're not putting the academics in the classroom, let's focus on the academics of what we are going to share there and those resources. Start there and then climb the chain. So that's what we want. That's our focus, or that's what we're all saying here. Let's put it in classrooms.
Hi, I am a Brookfield resident, and I support exploring this further, but I also am afraid that we would lose more students to other districts if they weren't happy with the shared services. So I'm wondering if there's something that we could do to be more transparent and maybe the people that couldn't make it here tonight, just to be open to them, and maybe, Laura, you mentioned that you were on Facebook. Maybe there could be a board of education Facebook because I know a lot of the community members are on Facebook. Something that you could put the information out. Like tonight I just learned that we're also accepting resumes from other superintendents. Just simple information like that to share with us that not only are we exploring the shared services with Mr. Hill, but also we're accepting resumes and looking at that aspect as well. Just to be more transparent.
That would have to be a board website or a board link and some serious guidelines set up.
And we have confidentiality
I honestly don't want to cross that line. I mean, I am very careful what I post on my page because that is my personal page. I'm sitting here as a board member because we put the gavel on the table. But when I do my Facebook stuff, that's my personal life. So we can have a website or a Facebook page for the district. I know Waterloo has done that. I don't know who monitors that for you. I don't know. So you pretty much are censoring what you put out there. I know your downfall is what people put there that you can't always control. So
I just don't even.
Yeah,
We really,
but
interestingly
it's-
enough, we've had it for 2 years maybe, and there's only been one time that I've had to go in and delete something, just for what it's worth. I thought there'd be more, I was a little worried about that myself.
I would be very concerned right now starting a local schools Facebook page. I'm gonna leave it that with what, I read, and I've been following a lot at Medina City Schools and Medina Outrage page. The guy that is doing that, I mean, not to change the subject, just is unbelievable. I don't have the time or the desire to sit there and do that, but we do have to find a way to communicate better and tell people what is going on.
I would say to that, I'm the same way as you. I get on and I read all this stuff that's going on. I did comment, and then the last time we had the levy out, there were comments, and it was just wrong information. So I just got on and just said, this is what's going on, this is the correct information. If you want to know, come to a forum. And I can't tell you how many people liked it or commented on it, that it's nice to have the right information. Because the rumors spread so much faster than the fact. And it's just, it's, like I said, I only got in and said facts, and whenever Dr. Hill does that, he just keeps on using facts. But I mean, for the most part, if you're there watching it, at least you know what the community's out there saying. So it does help the board and the district to know what's being said out there, so that at least you're aware. And if you think it's valid, you can counteract it. So, and I do think, like I said, we've tried everything we can to communicate, and we still haven't found the right.
No, there's no 100%.
But we're working on it, and I think communication in the last 3 years has improved, and I think it's helped the board, and I think it's helped the school district. And I think that's what helped pass the budget.
I was actually one of your persons that did like it, and I'm on the other Waterloo too, so I follow up with the school stuff. Does anybody else have any comments?
I was just going to ask, because we know we're looking at probably having an interim superintendent or possibly having Mr. Hill. And Laura, it sounds like somewhat you're against maybe having Mr. Hill, but maybe not. But what benefit would our teachers and students have from having an interim as opposed to trying Mr. Hill?
I'm not against Mr. Hill at all.
Right, okay.
I want to make that clear. I mean, him and I went back and forth for the past couple of days, and I pretty much explained how I worked to him and Mr. Carpenter himself. I just want the facts, and I want to know everything, and I got to see it on the table. I'm sitting here in a spot representing the community with a $19 million budget, and it's dwindling. So this decision I make isn't, and the way I make my decisions is what's going to happen a year from now, 2 years from now. Because that's when you're going to see the effects of, I screwed up last month. It's not going to be tomorrow. I mean, when you break the glass, you know you broke it. But you put things in motion that are going to lead to the next motion. For every choice, there's a consequence. I want to make sure whatever choices we make, the consequences are going to be positive and move forward in the field. If it's shared services, if it's Mr. Hill, if it's the Pope coming in here and running the school, as long as I have information and I can make a sound decision and I listen to what this community wants, I need a levy pass. So plugging my ears and digging my heels in and whatever you want to say isn't going to help. And as I've expressed before, I've listened to so many things from this community for so long. I've been in your guys' spots running levy campaigns. They're hard to do. You take them personal because people come at you because they don't have money or whatever reason. But whatever comes out of this decision on shared services, I'm open to this. I'm open to all of it. I have to be. But I need the documentation, I need the information, and I want to know exactly where we're going. And until I see that, I've got a list of expectations. I've got 6 pages. I got a whole notebook of research I put together over the past 2 weeks. I mean, there's contracts, there's questions, there's everything. I need the answers. And right now, we're still saying, well, we got to do this, we got to do that. It's going to boil down to what we want, what we're going to agree to, and how much we're going to save. And if I'm saving one teacher, I don't know how that's going to benefit 2,300 kids, one teacher. Give me more textbooks, give me more iPads, give me more computers. I just touched every single kid that comes in one classroom that has 32 computers for the entire day, every day for 180 days. That's where I want to see the money. And if it's sharing the knowledge and technology that Waterloo has, that we don't have, I'll bring it to here in a heartbeat, and vice versa. I'm quite sure they would accept whatever we had to offer to them as far as putting the sources in the classroom. 2014, we need to have computers to do testing. How are you going to test 200 kids in 10th grade for 3 days all at the same time, at field, right now? It's not going to
I
happen.
probably shouldn't have singled you out.
No, it's fine.
But
No
you've been
problem.
the only one who really spoke for the board. So as a parent, and when you say you want to know what the community wants, I want to know from the board, what benefit are we going to have? Because we know we're going to have 6 or 8 months with no superintendent, so we're having interim. So what's going to be the difference with an interim or with Mr. Hill? Because before we can move forward, I think.
With Mr. Hill, he's kind of proven. And a new guy, a new person, don't have to be a guy, I'm sorry. But a new person, we're not gonna know. Not that, again, this is all preliminary. But this Dr. Hill has proven what we get in, and I haven't seen any resume. I had one that somebody sent to my house, that I gave him, and he wrote back today. The one I got, there was no experience as a superintendent.
I would also want to take that too. As far as transparency, I know that I had emailed several times to all of the board members, what is your input on this? Or just things in general. Let's say that I did investigate and I got some information, see some information on shared superintendents. What I think brings a lot of negativity to us is that occasionally we sit up here and I know that I have emailed people and occasionally I'll get responses from probably 4 people on this board. And then there may be this one person that doesn't say a word or never responds to anything. And then when we get up here in front of the public, all of a sudden we're bombarded with information that no one has shared. And so when we talk about transparency, we all have to work together. When I put out that email and say, hey, I got in touch with a couple of board members, I'm not saying yes or no. They were positive. They did say, wow, maybe, since it's not 2 new school districts going together, nothing's set in stone here. And I cannot say enough that we did not have any contact with Dr. Hill. I didn't, before that meeting when we had the executive session. I did not talk to him about shared services. I don't know what else I can do, but it just keeps coming up that we did, and I did not. I know that Allison had emails from, you had investigated a few board members, and she also, shared with everyone. But sometimes what happens is we try to share with one another, and we either get reprimanded by one school board member, or nothing is shared with us at all until an hour before the school board meeting. Well, you know what, Laura, that's not
We're here about shared services. Yeah, we got one more question.
I'd like to address or answer the young lady's question up front here.
Wait a minute, we got this lady, Tom. This lady up here had. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you asked what this decision from the board would do for the community. I think that was the question.
No, I asked what would the difference be between having,
Okay.
what would the difference be between having an interim for 6 to 8 months and having,
Okay, and I touched on this in Waterloo. My opinion, I believe the community really doesn't have faith in our board to make a decision. So an interim would get us through to the next board that could then make a decision and support that board for 4 years. The problem we have right now, we just saw it on display. So if they make a decision, we were happy with the decision they made 3.5 years ago. And they changed that, and now we're gonna make another decision, and then most likely, or some of them are not gonna participate in this board again next year. So the support for the decision made for the next position, the next superintendent, has got to be done by somebody who's going to be here to support that decision. Okay, that's the advantage of going to an interim. And Lisa, I'd like to thank you. On Monday, you gave us our first option publicly. Tonight, you gave us our second option publicly. And I would like to, Steve, I think that the community, the key citizen groups getting together and talking so the community can have a voice. I think that's a great idea. And if you want to give me some numbers, we'll set that up. But those are the things I think that we don't have in the field district, the relationship with the board that the Waterloo people have, and therefore that trust on August 1st, whoever takes that seat on August 1st, is not going to have the trust of the community because the board put them in. So that's why the interim would get us through that lack of trust.
You know, to answer your question as a board member up here, I don't know, is it working? I don't know what to do about an interim. If it was up to me and I ruled the roost, I would let Mrs. Coleman stay here at least. The reason being is that she is established superintendent in our district. I don't care if her name is Mrs. Smith. I'm just saying, to me, that makes the most sense right now until we can get past this. And then if we need a new superintendent, or if we have to share services with Mr. Hill and Waterloo, I'm all for it. Because frankly, the schools are in a big mess. I mean, they are. And people talk about the state, the state, the state. You know, at times, we got to start looking at federal people and try to tell the states what to do. And it brings it down to us in our local school district. And you know what? And I've said it before. Here we are, Field Local School District, Portage County, and we're fighting amongst each other while we're having spirited discussion. Let's put it that way. Do you think anybody in Columbus even knows we're here? This is about our kids, our community, and that gentleman's property value back there. That's what I said before. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, and I'll be quiet here in a second. We got to think outside of this box that we're in, that we're always taking direction from somebody else, and we got to fix our problems right here. We got to take care of our good teachers, because you know what? While I'm up here, I want to say, this is a good school district. We got a good curriculum director in Bethany, Hudson, I'm sorry. And I know of teachers that are good teachers, and sometimes I get upset when I hear people badmouth in our district, because I think for what we have and what we've got to work with, that tells you right there. That's important. Excellent with distinction. Now, you can take it whatever it's worth, but right now, that's the cornerstone of a good education. So I'll be quiet.
You had a comment?
It's kind of, I think we're way far away from now the shared services conversation, we're talking about field board, so I think it's kind of pointless at this point, so.
Well, no, we're here for shared services.
Well, I just feel like it's very off topic, but I was gonna say, we are considering the shared services, which I do appreciate both boards being creative and trying to come up with ideas. I think to what you're saying is, something's gonna have to change with how the school systems are run in the state. So I think you were, you know, way more than I do, but I think you are trying to be ahead of the game, which I appreciate. I'm not sure if it's right for us or not. But when we are considering this, I think something to consider, if you are only going to have 50% of your time split, obviously you don't have 100% to give, which means there's going to have to be delegation. You know, even if you're saying you're outside of the school system, you know, if you're at Waterloo and field has an emergency, you know, you talked about a chain of command. One thing I would have to think, if you're thinking from a business aspect of the chain of command, would be how are those people going to be compensated for them now having to take on more work? Because if you're talking about a principal that having to take over such duties, you know,
if I was the principal and saying, well, hey, I'm doing part of this guy's job, am I getting paid enough? Or is this where I want to be at in the school system, where I'm now doing part of somebody else's job and getting compensated for the same? I think at some point, when this conversation gets down to that level, you're going to have those questions come back. You're going to have that principal saying, well, this is not my job, this is not my responsibility. I would think in this economy, they're going to say, I'll do it because I keep a job. But at some point, that is going to, I would think that would happen. Whose responsibilities, if you're talking about how to figure out that chain of command, are they going to be okay with taking on that more responsibility?
One last question, and then we're going to end the session.
I'll make it quick, I'll actually keep it to the topic here. I listened to your video, tonight, it seems like there's been a lot of good comments about, shared services, connection, Waterloo and the board. They seem to be very professional, present themselves well. I don't want this meeting to be a bad reflection, or vice versa, but I do want to say, Terry, in the first 5 minutes you were here, you said, if we can't make money at doing this, then we're not going to do it. I listened to you, and you said that.
If we don't save money.
If we don't save money, okay? There's 3 factors. One's financial, one seems to be this whole academic in the classroom, putting, more teachers in the classroom. Then there's also this strain, or potential strain with administration that might be caused if we have a half a superintendent. So I look at it in 3 different areas. And I can't get over, we keep talking about the other 2, which are valid, but only after we've talked about the obvious, which is what you brought up in the first 2 minutes of the conversation, Terry, and that is, does it financially make sense? And what I'm hearing is, I haven't done anything with spreadsheets. I have received spreadsheets from other people, and they've alluded to and made some assumptions in these spreadsheets, which I'm sure when you guys sit down and work out the details, you work out things like your salary. But from what I understand right now, Mrs. Coleman, or let's say our superintendent and Waterloo superintendent are somewhere in the $92,000 to $96,000 range, or let's say under $100,000. If they in fact stay at that same rate, which I don't know if they will or if that's been discussed, but what I've heard is that it might be something much higher, such as $120,000, $130,000, $140,000, $50,000 a year, excluding benefits. Well, I'm trying to get past the financial piece, because if we do a 50-50 split, which was mentioned tonight, I think the 65-35 was mentioned Monday night. If it was at a 65% split, that would be something like we'd be paying somewhere around $97,000 if the superintendent had a salary of $150,000, excluding benefits. We're already paying for a 100% superintendent less than that. If we did something to the tune of a 50-50 split, that'd be $75,000 to each district, if it was at the $150,000 range. So now we're saving $20,000. And my final point is it ties into the field. I think the most important thing that the field needs right now, this is not a reflection on Waterloo, is they really need to pass a levy. And in order to do that, they need to create stability in the district. And I don't want to get into the whole Beth Cohen thing tonight, I won't go there for the board's sake. But I do think it's important to recognize that your board said this is something new. This is something that less than 2 or 3% of the school districts participate in the whole state of Ohio. So you admitted that is something of a little bit of uncertainty. So why would we be going into this fall trying to pass a levy and doing something that would add to field's uncertainty rather than make it more certain? That's all I have to say.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. If there's any questions, email us, whatever.
I got one question. I mean, where are we going to go from here? Because I'm not going to walk out of here and do nothing. What's the next step?
I'll go ahead and
Create those expectations.
Well, really, we're going to have an executive session and talk about what we value, what we want, what we're thinking, where we want to go.
we need to do the same.
Start that process.
So do we kind of come up with something that we're gonna talk about, or are you guys just gonna come up with what you want, we come up with what we want, and then go from there?
I think we want to talk about, I personally would like to have an executive session with our board. That makes sure that we take everybody's pulse and we can see.
I would make a suggestion. I think we need to have one more joint meeting with an executive session. At that time, both boards should come to executive with their list of expectations and discuss it.
Why are we doing it?
I'm not sure these guys even want to go that next step. They want to talk about it.
Well, right, that's what we have to do too.
I mean, I guess if we're talking about expectations, because it's been brought up, we need to talk openly about what the expectations are. It's not something.
That's fine.
You know, I think we need to come up with that list and have, we always talk about we want our study groups, and our study groups, well, it's time for study groups. And let's figure out openly where we're gonna go and what we want.
Who's like, Tom, are you the head guy for that committee?
I'm not the head guy, I'll give you my card. That's our follow-up. We'll arrange a meeting, we'll get together, and we'll provide the feedback.
I think that we can come up with our own, what we think that we want to do, but I mean, something as big as this, we need to hear what their expectations are as well. You know, and what these folks, you know, a young mother, I wasn't a young mother, but I was a young father. But, you know, I've been there. I mean, you know, I was out in the southeast school district before we moved out to Randolph. One of the reasons I looked in field, I swear to God I did, but I had 4 little kids and couldn't find a place to go, so we found a place in Randolph. But I mean, the reason that young parents, I believe, young parents look to a community is because of the school. You know, the school is the cornerstone of the community. And as the school goes, the rest of it. So I mean, I definitely want to hear what these people have to say and what they expect. And if we don't start at the superintendent, you know, I definitely think that, you know, we can benefit from sharing those resources, at least. You know, I know that we desperately need more people, and maybe we have something that you don't that we can help with as well.
So even in conjunction with the expectations we would have on a shared superintendent, what if we also provide each other with what we have as far as resources in our own buildings that we could share? And let's add both of it. If this is something moving forward, and if the shared services idea doesn't happen, nothing to say shared resources can't happen. So we're sitting here, we're already openly discussing it. Let's just keep going and find out.
We're going to convene an executive session to discuss possible employment contract.
Okay.
Once you discuss contracts, you can't do that. You have to.
Well, I understand that part.
So if we were to get together and discuss the items that would be our must-haves, that would be part of the contract. So we cannot discuss that here.
What do you guys think about having 2 members from each board? I mean, you guys are gonna be, like, a little committee to.
Yeah, I think we did a committee of less than the majority, so 2 people from each board. If after your executive sessions, you both feel that you want to take the next step, then I think that makes the most sense logistically to have 2 people from Field and 2 people from Waterloo meet occasionally and work out some of the details and then bring that to the next public meeting. I think it'll save a lot of time.
What do you guys think about that?
I mean, we would not have the problem. You know, I guess, yeah, just making sure that.
So we can do that, meet executive session, the contract, 50 contract. And find out who wants to do that. And I'll let Brian know.
So we don't have, I mean, if we have another meeting, we have to take.
Right.
That's right. Let's see. At this time, I have a motion to recess in executive session to discuss employment. second, please. Comments, questions, roll call, please, Tom?
Westergaard?
Yes.
Scum?
Yes.
Whittlesey? Fletcher?
Yes.
Jones?
Thanks, everybody, for coming, really appreciate it. Good information, lots of notes.
Again, thank you, everybody, for coming. Can I have a motion to adjourn this special meeting, please? Allison Wesco removes. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Laura May seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Todd? Member May?
Yes.
Member Stewart? Member Westover? Yes. Member Kelly?
Yes.